Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for the Beuerlein Fellows Information Session, where we'll be talking about the 2022 cohort. I'm really excited because we're joined by our partners at the Greater Missouri Chapter of Alzheimer's Association. And we're going to talk about how this program is continuing to be developed as we're entering the second year. So a preview of today, we'll talk about the Gephardt Institute and what we mean when we talk about civic engagement. We'll do a round of introductions for who's here. We'll do an overview of the program, talk about considerations before applying, the application process and what to expect after you've applied, the program structure and important dates. And then we'll be joined later by a Beuerlein Fellow who will be able to answer questions about their experience in the program this past year. Okay, so the Gephardt Institute's mission is to foster a vibrant culture of civic engagement throughout Washington University, catalyzed by engaged citizens, scholarship, and partnerships that advance the collective good. Its goals are to educate students for lifelong engaged citizenship, catalyze community partnerships that respond to community needs and priorities, and to infuse civic engagement throughout the WashU experience. Like our other St. Louis Summer Fellowships, we see the Beuerlein Fellows Program as helping us accomplish the first two goals, as we're getting students involved in understanding their roles in civic action and community change. And we, again, are working with the wonderful Alzheimer's Association in order to provide some learning for our students, but also hopefully some impact for the work that they're doing in relationship to their mission. Okay, so when we talk about civic engagement, it's really a large umbrella term, and it can mean anything from your informal helping out a neighbor, carry their groceries, to participating in protests and other actions, such as voting. You could volunteer to be a poll worker, or you could run for an elected office or some other form of public service. Essentially, we're talking about engagement that promotes the quality of life in a community through both political and non-political processes. Okay, who is in the room? So I will start by introducing myself, and then I'll ask for the other folks that have joined us to do the same. So my name is Nicole Murphy. My role at the Gephardt Institute is as the Community Engagement Coordinator, where a large part of my work is to work with these fellowship programs, which is really exciting. I enjoy it a lot. One of my favorite parts about this work is helping students sort of immerse themselves in our St. Louis context and see a different side of St. Louis than they perhaps have been introduced to in their time at WashU. So I will pass to Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda Duke, and I'm the Special Projects Coordinator here at Gephardt Institute. I just joined in December, and my role will be to help coordinate the recruitment and selection process for these fellowships. And students can reach out to me and ask me any questions, and I'd be happy to work with them. And I will pass it to Jerry.
Hello, my name is Jerry Dowell. I serve as the Vice President of Public Policy for the Alzheimer's Association Greater Missouri Chapter. Ultimately, what that means is I serve as our chief lobbyist with our General Assembly and the Missouri Executive Departments with the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, advancing public policy that helps those with Alzheimer's and other dementias, as well as their caregivers. I'll pass it off to Sarah.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Lovegreen. I serve as the Vice President of Programs for the Greater Missouri Chapter. And I think basically that's just a fancy way of saying I lead our efforts at the chapter to provide education and support to the general community and caregivers, as well as people living with the disease. And I'll pass it to Peggy.
Hi, I'm Peggy Killian. I'm the Vice President of Communications for the Greater Missouri Chapter. And in my role, I oversee all the media relations and social media efforts for the chapter, as well as website, e-news, communications. Any way that the public is communicated to comes pretty much through our team. And we really serve as an internal agency, really to support Jerry's work with advocates, Sarah's team's work with constituents, our walk and development team, and our longest day manager as well, just to increase awareness of not only the disease itself, but really the Alzheimer's Association and how we can work with families and support families, and also increase awareness of what our efforts have looked like in the space of like the public policy space, and also in advancing Alzheimer's research. And I guess I will pass it to Sonia.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Sonia Sequeira. I'm the new Associate Director of Community Engagement with the Gephardt Institute. I just started last week, but am looking forward to working with all the fellowship programs.
Great. Thank you all for being here. I'm really excited to hear you all speak about what it's like to work with these fellows and the work that you're hoping to uplift in your organization. So just an overview of the fellow. As I mentioned before, this will be its second cohort. The program seeks to support undergraduate students in defining their role in civic and community engagement, progressing their professional development, and clarifying their career interests. And for the work that you do as a part of your internship, fellows receive a $5,000 summer stipend. So the Beuerlein Fellows Program supports the development of an infrastructure for equity and access in Alzheimer's and dementia care through the three pillars of care and support, concern and awareness, and public policy at the Greater Missouri Chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Stimulate dialogue, mentorship, and capacity for action around innovation between the intersection of civic engagement and neuroscience, and cultivate a lifelong commitment to civic engagement while strengthening networks between students, researchers, and civic leaders in St. Louis working in eradicating Alzheimer's and all other dementia. So I will pass over to our friends at the association to talk about their organization and why this program.
Thanks, Nicole. I'll kick it off, and then I'll let Jerry and Peggy chime in and talk a little bit about their specific areas. But I think as we kind of hit on in our introduction, right, we are the leading organization when it comes to all things Alzheimer's and dementia. So we are the largest funder of research. We are looking at risk reduction and early detection, and really thinking about how those two things come into play when it comes to reaching our constituents and being sure that everyone has access to the resources they need, and maximizing quality care and support. And that happens both or across the public health spectrum. We're looking at helping folks individually within their communities and organizations, as well as looking at systems change opportunities. And that's really where we start overlapping some with Jerry, as he's working on some of those policy and legislative pieces to help facilitate some of those larger scale changes we'd like to see to ensure that everyone does have access to quality care and support. So within care and support, so that's my area of expertise, we're looking to get a fellow to help us really think about how we are serving our diverse communities, which communities we could be serving better, and building on a great foundation of knowledge that we were able to establish with our first cohort last summer. So the types of activities that we do is we recruit volunteers to help lead our community education programs, which is everything from understanding what Alzheimer's and dementia is to really helping give caregivers the tools and tips that they need to take care of their loved one as best they can. We also provide support groups, work with Peggy, as she mentioned, on just raising general awareness of the services that we have available, both in an online kind of asynchronous format, our virtual program offerings, and when the climate is appropriate, the ones that are actually happening in person, in 3D in communities. But it really does kind of take everybody working together to make those happen. And I will actually go ahead and punt it over to Peggy to talk a little bit about the work that a fellow can do within concern and awareness.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and as I mentioned when I introduced myself earlier, so our primary areas of focus would be media relations and social media. So we have 3 main social platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then our media relations efforts are both proactive and reactive. The bulk of the time in the media world for us, we do spend on proactive media. So that's developing story pitches and content that we can go out and engage with the media on, and with the hope of securing coverage of the pitch. And when I say pitch, it's usually content about a program or service, or some particular public policy ask, a walk team when it's walk season for us. But it's combining the information with a narrative, a personal narrative. So a client story, a walk team participant, an advocate, et cetera, the combination of the two. So what we would, what we would be looking for in a candidate is someone who enjoys writing first and foremost, who can formulate real clean copy. By that, I mean, no typos, just nice, strong writing. And then and can package it either in short form as a social post, or short form as in a media pitch, or in a longer form. We do work with some papers across the state where we can actually submit copy, and they will run, they'll pretty much run what we provide. We have different arrangements with different papers. So like I said, first and foremost, a strong writer, someone who enjoys and has a passion for media relations. So knows about the media, knows what makes a good news story, what's newsworthy, and knows how to effectively sell the idea to a reporter. So it's a skill that that if you like it, you really like it, and if you don't, then it's a hard one to kind of teach, because it is a selling. It's a selling, almost like a selling position. So again, someone who likes to write, who enjoys pitching, media pitching, who's creative. I mean, we love having somebody come in fresh. When Pat joined us last year, I think he brought a fresh perspective. He spent a great deal of time doing research into outlets that we're serving our minority audiences, where we are always trying to increase our reach and awareness within those particular audiences. So he did some work for us to identify outlets that we had in the past not worked with very closely, and that we frankly weren't even aware of in some cases. So we would like to build on that. And then the story cultivation piece is, we're always, the other trait is somebody who's curious, who enjoys digging, who likes to talk to people, interview people, and put together, a story about them. So a reporter's hat as well would be a welcome skill set for somebody to have. And I will pass it over to Jerry.
Thank you, Peggy. So in the public policy side of things, what we look to do is advance policies that will affect and make changes for the better for those that are caregivers and those that are suffering with dementia. So it's what we take is information that we get from care and support, so education groups and advocates, And what we're looking for is someone to help us engage community partners, engage advocates, and help us find advocates in underserved areas, as well as those that are interested in the public policy process. So for me, I'm looking for someone that is interested in that civic engagement side, someone that is interested in having conversations with state legislators and federal officials that advance the policies that we're advocating for. So I'm also looking for someone that's a strong writer, because many times we're asked to take a 500-page document and condense it down into something that is a one-pager that folks that we're visiting with, state reps and senators and department officials, can understand and utilize in our efforts to help advance either a something that is legislation, or even something as simple as a change in regulation at the state level. So it's someone that's interested in doing that, someone that is thinks outside the box, and someone that is quick, kind of a quick study, because every day is something different depending on what's going on.
Great, thank you all. I can see how y'all stay busy with all that good work you're doing. So goals for the program, or some stated goals for the program, to develop civic leadership skills of WashU students interested in raising awareness and concerns of Alzheimer's disease with all communities, make meaning of the health disparities in the Missouri region relating to Alzheimer's and all other dementia, identify engagement strategies for part of the St. Louis region for Alzheimer's and other dementia support, develop relationship building skills to build community support with community members impacted by Alzheimer's and other dementias, and support new initiatives and policies to improve access to care for all communities. Key program elements include weekly seminars, where as a part of your cohort, you're learning about the larger context of St. Louis. You're learning about the larger context of these health disparities and inequities, which should help inform the work that you're doing with the Alzheimer's Association. It's also about building your skills, your developing professionally, and how you're making sense of your experience in both the internship and spending an immersive summer in St. Louis. So to that end, there are neighborhood immersions where fellows will go to different areas in the St. Louis region, and they'll hear directly from folks that live there and local leaders or organizations about what's happening in their communities. I really enjoy this piece. It's great to hear the story being told by the folks that actually live there. It creates different narratives that students have to think critically about and synthesize for their own understanding of what St. Louis is like, beyond sort of what they might have heard coming in. There's the internship piece, a very significant piece, as we just talked about, with these 3 pillars within the association. There's community events, which the cohort gets together and they go out and they do things across the region, such as go see live performances, attend a baseball game. They're meant for bonding, but also for understanding sort of, again, the St. Louis context. We choose things that are a sort of typical activity for someone to do in St. Louis over the summer. We offer supervision and mentorship for students. So you'll meet individually with program leads to talk about what you're experiencing in your internship, what you're experiencing within the cohort, how to make meaning of what you're doing to help you problem solve and support the work that you're doing within your internship. And then participation in signature Alzheimer's Association events, such as the Walk to End Alzheimer's and the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. So here's just a closer look at sort of the scope of the commitment that you're making. So again, on top of the significant commitment to your internship with your hours that you're completing, we do have lots of programmatic elements from week to week that require your time and engagement. So again, that's those individual meetings and those neighborhood immersions. Yeah, so I just think it's important to fully understand what the commitment is over the intensive summer period of the program. So when you're considering applying, important to note that this is an 8-month appointment. So there's obligations in the spring semester, there's obligations in the fall semester, and as we talked about, there's an intense period in the summer. We should shortly have more details on what exactly the commitment looks like on either end of the summer. So be on the lookout for that. We definitely welcome our international students to apply for this program. If you are an international student and you're interested in applying, you can follow up with me or with Linda, and we will provide contact information following this information session. And then a general note on eligibility is you need to be a continuing full-time undergraduate student in good academic standing. For the application process, it's entirely online. So through the Gephardt website, there's a cohort application portal where you'll find a link to start your application, but also links to send to your recommender. We ask that you submit at least one recommendation, and then that you attach a resume that would specifically highlight your civic and community engagement experiences. Though all of those application materials are due no later than Sunday, February 20th at 11:59 p.m. We understand that some things can go wrong, or that there might be a need for your recommender to request additional time. So we just ask that you communicate that to us so that we're aware of it happening. And so we can follow up pretty quickly to get all of your materials in for consideration. Prior to the application deadline, we offer drop-in sessions where we'll have previous fellows available to answer your questions and to act as a sounding board for your applications. And those dates are listed on a screen. And again, we'll follow up with this information in a more digestible format. Okay, after you've submitted the application, we will have pulled together a selection committee made up of faculty and staff from across campus. They will meet and review applications. Those applicants will be who are moving forward through the process will be notified and asked to sign up for interviews. Those interviews will be held primarily on Thursday, March 3rd between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. If that does not work for you, we can be a little flexible in terms of the times that we provide for interviews. And then following the interview process, if again moving forward, as Jerry and Peggy mentioned, it's very important for the fellows that participate in those pillars of their organization to have really strong writing skills. So we'll be asking for writing samples. I see you have your hand raised, Peggy.
Yeah, when applicants apply, do they indicate what particular area they are applying for? Like, do they say, I have a particular interest and concern and awareness, and then is there an extra sheet that they would have to speak to as like in a screening process to say, I have, express interest or provide experience within that area, or are they all viewed as a group? Anyway, I think you know what I'm getting at. I just wondered.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, and we can definitely chat about if the way that we have it set up is the best way to go. But the way it's set up now is one singular pool, and then we sort of narrow that down and get more to the heart of what folks are interested in. And so that's when we would, again, we can change this process if there's something else that works better and makes more sense. But for our purposes, that's the way it's outlined now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, like I wonder if they, what I'm wondering is if they look at the opportunity as a general opportunity to be engaged and work with the association on their mission to make more people aware and reach and serve more people, or do they say, or do they know that if there are 3 different particular roles they could play, and then they would know if something about one of those 3 roles in particular speaks to them. Like that would be, I'm interested in their overall mission as an organization, but I'm particularly could see myself plugging in here and moving the mission forward, et cetera, in this capacity. Or does it not? That sounds like it's more of a general pool of people that have expressed an interest in the mission and in becoming more civically engaged, et cetera. So it's a more general kind of an opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely marketed to get folks that are interested in the general opportunity, but I hear your point, and I think that we can adjust the application. So when we provide information, we definitely provide information about the 3 particular areas that that fellows would be working, a fellow would work in. I think we can adjust the application where they could, when they're applying for Beuerlein Fellows, they could mark what their primary interest would be among the pillars. Does that? Yeah, okay. You're gonna say something,
I
Mariah?
just want to chime in really quickly and say that, yeah, I just wanted to say that when I applied, I kind of looked at it as this was the general mission, but these are the 3 specifics, and know that I was going to be placed in one of those.
I see. Yeah, we can definitely.
But also it's saying I have weak internet, so I don't know if you heard that.
I think I understood the gist of what you were saying, but it definitely was broken up. But yeah, we can definitely, to both of points, make that much more clear in the information.
Oh, I was saying it was clear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was saying that it was clear that I knew that I was going to be working with like 3 different, like not 3 different, like I would be placed in one of them.
I see.
And I think I had to directly say which one I was interested in my second interview.
Ah, okay. Yeah,
I believe
we do that before them though, I think is a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts before we carry on? That was an excellent point. I'll follow up. So again, we'll have interviews. The selection committee will meet again. And then selected fellows would be notified, or notifications would go out by Wednesday, March 16th. Some important dates to know. We will have spring seminars for all of our fellowship programs on Saturdays in April. We will have a retreat on May 31st. And then for the Alzheimer's Association, there are, again, specific spring onboarding hour and internship hours that are to be completed. So we will, again, follow up with specific dates when those are made clear. Okie doke. So we have Mariah Davis with us. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, And then we have time for questions for Mariah, but also for our partners at the association, or I'm happy to answer any questions about the program broadly.
So my name is Mariah Davis. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am a current sophomore, so I applied when I was a rising sophomore. Or a freshman, but like, yeah, anyway. And I'm majoring in global health and the environment through the anthropology department with a minor in biology, and I'm also pre-med. And I'm from Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is Metro Detroit. So yeah, any questions for me? Also, hi to all my previous supervisors.
Yeah, if you could speak to sort of the highlights of your experience, that would be excellent.
There's so many highlights to the experience. I think one of the biggest things is the fact that it is a fellowship that's comprised of having an internship, but then also having a separate component. This really allowed learning to happen when you were with like the Gephardt side that was maybe specific to it was like specific yet also broad about St. Louis, and then you went and kind of did that in practice with the internship portion. So you're like in your work you were able to, for me, I was working with a lot of data, so I was able to kind of get more background on it with when I was in different Saturday sessions with Gephardt, or if I was we had the Thursday sessions where we kind of went over and dove into different areas of St. Louis. So that really helped inform my internship, and then they just really informed each other well. So I think the setup of the program as a whole is really the biggest standout feature of it. And then also just getting to work with the Alzheimer's Association and getting to be involved in a nonprofit that is a branch of a national nonprofit, and kind of experience that dynamic. Yeah.
Can you speak to what was most challenging about the experience?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest challenges was learning, like kind of navigating through the newness of it all, since it was, we were kind of building, since we were the inaugural cohort of the program, kind of getting through all of that and making sure to prepare materials for the next cohort. And so that, I guess, would be the hardest part, but the hardest part that might be more applicable to an applicant looking at it now might be time management and learning how to really understand what you can handle, communicate with your supervisor what you can handle. I think I learned that pretty quick, but it's definitely something that can pose as a challenge, especially if you're not used to working in kind of that dynamic. However, I will say that the Gephardt Institute does kind of prepare you well for that, in having some of the seminars that you have before you do your process are on relationships between you and your supervisor.
I'm curious, Jerry, Peggy, or Sarah, if you talked sort of about technical skills that you'd like to see in a fellow. Are there more sort of intangible sort of qualities that would make someone a good fit for working with your organization?
I think a common theme sort of across our organization is really, someone who's interested in community engagement, right? All of our work really stems from our work within communities. And so I think we're excited and hopeful that we'll be back physically more in community in the next, hopefully not too much longer time. We'll be able to get back out there. And so it's really identifying, it's connecting and being able to identify who those influencers may be, and then how to best connect them with the Alzheimer's Association. I think summer's also a really exciting time at the association. In addition to, so this year we'll actually also be launching a new strategic plan. And I think what we're hearing is that there will be additional ways and increased accountability for our efforts in diversity and equity and inclusion, which could really help shape and inform really what some of the fellows are doing. So that's really exciting that that'll be coming into play. And then we do have a couple of just big events that happen that the fellows will actually be able to be part of. So I think the community engagement side is really kind of the crux of it. But then, kind of matching that with some of the larger scale events that happen in community as well. So Peggy or Jerry, what else would you add?
I would add one that's probably more mundane than Sarah's, and that is the setting in the professional setting. I think there's a level of communication that I think you may not inherently have as a student, but that will serve you well when you get into a professional setting, like providing updates on where projects stand, that kind of thing. That I think that's something that I think would help is just understanding it's kind of a different setup when you have some responsibilities. That what comes with it is making sure people are kept up to date on where different projects stand, and if you're having issues or questions, the ability to be comfortable in reaching out and saying I don't understand that assignment, or and then just being creative and curious as well by nature, and wanting to learn more and be a sponge. I think we did a session last summer with the entire group when we talked about a lot of the news that was surfacing with the FDA approval of aducanumab, and I fielded a lot of really good questions from the group. And I was like, they were engaged, they were interested, they were on, they had read the news. And so I just think a curious nature is always a benefit, and just wanting to learn more, and just, going, just being a sponge basically, and just going outside and being comfortable in projects when it's not like, here's the 5 things I want you to do and come back to me with this. Being comfortable with is, here's the challenge or the issue. Tell me how you would address it, and I'd love to hear your thinking on it. And I think is that kind of an elevated process of thinking process, analyzing process. So, and conveying to the students up front that we want to learn from them as well. Like, there is a give and take, and we, as coming in, fresh perspective, young minds, obviously intelligent, we want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear what your perspective is as well. And so just that, knowing that we want to hear from them. So that was a lot on in there, but I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students. And I just like to see I like to see young people maximize opportunities, and feel like they're not coming in, and there may not be definitive things that guardrails they're going to be working in, and the comfort level to kind of rise to that challenge and push themselves.
I'll kind of build on a little bit of what Peggy was saying. I think, what I've experienced in my professional life and working with interns for over 20 years is that you get out of it what you put into it. The more you engage in something, the more you will learn from it. And I think the other thing that I learned with working with, high excelling students, that, you guys are kind of the cream of the crop at Washington University in order to get in there. So don't be afraid to fail. I mean, that's part of the experience is learning how to do it, and then being mentored, and then helping move along the lines. Don't be afraid to do something because you're afraid that it may not be perfect or something like, along that lines. And I've experienced that with high achieving students is, you are going to learn the most from an error or mistake, as long as you're making that in good in good faith, that's okay. And I think that's where something to think about.
So we're getting close to the end here. I ask if there's anything that you thought that we would talk about, we haven't talked about yet. We can talk about that. And if there's a message or that you want to leave prospective fellows with, just sort of across the board here.
I guess a question I have is if you go back one slide to the process that you outlined, I think where like the interviews, the third bullet, interviews will be held primarily on those dates. Will we be involved in any of the interviewing, or how will that work in terms of the selection of the candidates?
Yeah, so we selected the Thursday. You unfortunately weren't able to join our meeting Monday. It feels like a world away. I have no concept of time right now. Where we discussed, yes, we chose the Thursday because Terry, Jerry, and Sarah all had availability to participate in the interviews if we held them on that day. So I hope that your schedule allows for that as well.
Okay, I will check my schedule. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to ask you, Mariah. What do you think that anyone interested in this program should know about it?
I think they should know that while it is a big commitment, and it is a serious commitment, it's a commitment that's going to change your life really, and it's going to change your perspective on so many different things. In the classroom, as anthro major, we learn a lot, especially like in the first year, about kind of the problems that different communities have, the disparities that exist in the communities, but we don't really learn about the power that these communities have. And you learn a lot about that through this, I think. Can you hear me?
You cut in and out. And the last thing that was pretty clear was that you learn a lot. You were talking about the differences between being in a classroom learning and sort of the learning that you did in the fellowship.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Just I don't know what to do, because if it freezes, I'm not going to see a signal anyway. But it's a very big difference that becomes clear pretty much not even like a month or two into the program, how much more you're going to learn, how much more impactful and tangible what your learning will be to the rest of your career, and just like kind of the rest of your life. And the reason I said it's life-changing is because these are things like learning about community engagement, learning about how to effectively and equitably engage with communities, are things that are going to impact how you view different things and different problems in your life. And so this is kind of the first step at really taking that commitment to engaging with communities, learning about how do you navigate different power structures? How do you navigate when you know that harm has been done to a community, but you're coming in and maybe you have a history, or someone in a similar position has a history of doing harm there? How do you come into that? And so there's so many different areas for you to learn. I specifically did care and support. And so that I was stations that were community partners with the Alzheimer's Association. And through that, I was also able to just learn more about St. Louis and learn more about the nonprofits around St. Louis outside of kind of the WashU bubble it makes you aware of. So it's really a chance to pop the WashU bubble, get out in St. Louis, learn about something, and really represent WashU in a way that WashU is kind of striving to be represented now and as we move forward.
Great, thank you. I'll toss it out for any last words. Peggy, Jerry, Sarah, or Mariah.
I think we're looking forward, I think, to another great summer of and cohort of fellows, and hope that folks will I think see some of the opportunity. I don't know if everyone in our right, like some folks may have been like, oh, this is a nonprofit space, like maybe I want to explore that a little bit, and it may not be the health topic in particular that strikes your fancy, but I think the opportunity for a lot of transferable skills, and Mariah spoke really well to that, and really I think to learn and dig deep about something that really impacts quite a lot of people, and that a lot of communities aren't talking about. And we just welcome the chance to work with everyone and get new ideas, fresh insights, and feedback on how we're doing our work.
Yeah, and I would just add to that there is, for a lot of young people, unless they've been impacted by the disease, it could feel like, well, that's a disease that affects older people, and I don't know how sexy of an opportunity it would be to work for an associate. But the fact of the matter is that this is a disease whose impact has a lot of tentacles, and in particular for younger people. There is a lot of research that's coming out and that will be coming out within the next 2 to 3 years that speaks to lifestyle factors and the fact that you can make changes in your lifestyle that can starve off the onset of cognitive decline, and that this should be on everybody's radar, and this should be a disease that is a health, should always be on the radar, because it is a health crisis that our nation is facing, and the numbers are just going up. So young people may be touched and may be remote or secondary caregivers to a grandparent. For those unfortunate families that have been touched with the younger onset, they may actually have a parent that's living with the disease. So I would just say that it is an opportunity to be involved with work around a disease that is a huge crisis for our country, but where it's actually, we're starting to see some hope as far as the research goes. So within the next, 5 to 10 years, we're even starting to see early treatments that, obviously have been in the news, but there is a lot. And to WashU's credit, a lot of that exciting research is happening at WashU with biomarkers, for instance. So, it is just it's an awesome opportunity to be in on the work that's going on a critical health issue that's facing our country and frankly the world. So I hope young people would see it as that. So anyway, that's my selling point. I know I'm kind of singing to the choir on that one, but anyway, it's a point that's worth making.
Okay, so much appreciated hearing from you all about the program. I'm really excited for the second cohort to come together. If there are any additional questions that come up for you when reviewing any of the information that was shared today or through our website, you can contact me directly. Again, we will share information with folks post this presentation, or you can email the lovely Linda at the email address shown on the screen, stlsummerfellowships@wustl.edu, and we will be very diligent about answering those questions. Right, thanks.